What's up, y'all, and welcome into the Jack Vita Show. I'm your host, as always, Jack Vita. We are back here on Monday, May 15th. Hard to believe we're almost in June. We're halfway through the month of May. And we had a big time episode a couple weeks ago. People loved it so much, so we brought the guest back. Survivor winner, pageant queen,
Yep.
longtime sports media personality, host, NFL wife, Danni Boatwright. Welcome back.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. I'm even better now that you're back.
Thanks for having me back. It's funny. I'm broadcasting live from my mobile office today. Sometimes you have to get out of the house because even though my kids are at school, like my husband's a very big presence, right? So he can be really loud. I'm like, when he walks through the room, it's like an earthquake. I'm like, can you just try to be soft? But when I guess you're, 260 pounds, it's
He's an NFL
like
center.
kind of hard. And I'm like, he'll come home usually from the day doing stuff, right about the time we're kind of wrapping up podcast. And he's just not quiet. So I'm like, okay, we're going to go to the mobile office till I have to go to Car Loop and pick up the kids, which you said we're in the middle of May. We have a week and a half of school left. And that's like,
Oh my gosh.
okay, Jack, let me tell you, because you don't have kids, right? Okay.
Not yet. Not
That's,
that I know of.
yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
And any parent out there listening, okay, would totally get this. Like, it's bittersweet. Like, you look forward to, having summers, your mornings aren't as crazy, getting kids up and out, or, in the evenings doing homework. You have a break from all of that. But, like, I'm okay with that after a week. And then I'm ready. I like spring break is good. And I'm ready to get back to school because, they fight all the time. And I have nice, good kids, but I'm going to tell you, they fight. They fight with each other. They fight with us. They'll talk back. And I just get tired of it. And they're like, what are we going to eat? Well, you know what? You're 15 and 12. Y'all can fix yourself a grilled cheese. You're fine. Okay. And you're also old enough to entertain yourselves. So get out of the house. Go run sprints uphill or something. You do something. So I'm excited for summer to get here, but also I'm like, okay, here we go. And Casey just disappears during the day. So it all lands on me. So,
That's funny because when I was between that age, 12 and 15, it was like take your bike and just go wherever you want and hang out with your friends.
right. Yeah. Same. That's what we
Yeah.
did. The world's a different place in general, but it's just interesting because back in the day, yeah, we truly, when they say you're sun up to sunset, like you're gone out with your friends, riding bikes, just go, whatever, you don't do that now. And your parents don't hear from you all day. Like, it's fine. Now I'm tracking mine on Life 360. They're tracking me on Life 360. It's just a different time. It's interesting. So
That is interesting. Yeah, for us, it was like, since, here I am in Wilmette, little north of Chicago, just go to the beach all the time. I still
yeah,
do that all the time. It's a 5 minute car ride to the beach. So you get dropped off at the beach, you hang out with your friends, or maybe you bike over there, or we would just kind of round up, pick up basketball or baseball or soccer or football, whatever. And that was kind of what we did. It's sad to hear that that's not what they do these days.
yeah. I lived out in the country in Tonganoxie, Kansas, and we had probably, I don't know, maybe it was like about 10 acres around our house. Okay. And in our front yard, we mowed a baseball field. So we actually had a whole field out there and we had the bases out, everything. So every day we were playing, baseball or kickball or something with all the neighbor kids, like all day long. You would have thought I would have been a D1 softball player with like all the baseball I played with the boys and like, girl, no, I still wasn't any good. But yeah, it was fun. It was fun times. It's different. It's just different. It's different. So, by the way, can you see the back of my car? Like all the like seats and the wagon and
Yeah, what's back there?
I sort of cleaned it out. We were at the ballpark all weekend, as you know.
Uh-oh, we lost you.
Yeah, my friend was calling, so it was causing it. I have like 26. I have a baseball bag back there. I have chairs. I have a wagon. I did take the cooler in and got all the food inside, but the hand sanitizer. My husband was one of those during COVID that he like was freaking out and got like all the hand sanitizer he could. I was like, oh, okay, so we still have it, so I'm going to go donate it. Is it still good? But 26 bottles. Like,
Oh my gosh.
just wash your hands. You'll be okay. All right.
That reminds me of do you ever watch Curb Your Enthusiasm?
Yes.
Yeah, the COVID hoarder.
Yeah.
And the
Oh my gosh. Well, and the funny thing is too, my husband's a partner in like a grocery chain. Okay. It's a small town kind of grocery store chain. So you're going to be able to get the toilet paper. You're going to be able to get the hand sanitizer, just, whatever. It's kind of funny. I'm like, just wash your hands. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, that's like what's in Danny's car. That should be like a segment, every time. A portion of this.
You had an eventful weekend with all the sports, huh?
Gosh. Okay. I don't even know where to begin. All right. I'm just going to tell you a funny story, but let me tell you all that was in the weekend. So we had on Friday, I had spent the entire day because in Kansas, probably the same with you guys up in Illinois. It goes from spring to summer, right? Like, I'm sorry, from winter to summer. There's no spring. You maybe get 2 days of like spring weather. Okay. So it immediately jumps into summer weather. And on Friday, my oldest son was going to have a pool party for his baseball team, DeSoto High School. And so it's like, fine. So Friday, I spent the entire day outside cleaning like the pool, the cabana, getting everything set up so they could have this big pool party outside and doing a lot of yard work because it just all of a sudden like had to be done. And I spent outside all day cleaning and working. And then everybody showed up. The kids were wonderful, such good, respectful young men. Had a great time. They had our son had the pool party, and then I left. Now I left somebody there in charge. Okay. I didn't just leave all these teenagers by themselves in this wild pool party. I had to leave at 9:00 at night to go to my youngest son's baseball game. Like, what 12-year-old baseball starts at 9:00 at night, Jack? Is that extreme?
That's crazy. Yeah. I think my brother had one. It was like you play one night game the whole summer, and it was late at night under the lights. It'd be like, but it'd be 9:00 in like July, because that's when it would be dark.
Yeah.
So like that's weird, especially in May.
Well, and it was 9:00 at night, and normally we have night games, but nothing like that. Usually, can kind of go into that time frame, but not a start time at 9. It was really, really different. So anyway, we had that game, and then the next day we had a whole bunch of grad parties on Saturday, plus 2 more baseball games. And then on Sunday, I got up early, went to my nephew's graduation at KU, and then had to hightail it from Lawrence to Kansas City for a baseball game. And we had 3 baseball games on Sunday. So I didn't get done until Sunday night with the whole weekend. So I spent 3 days outdoors, the whole time, and so I got a little bit of a sore throat today from all the pollen in the air and stuff. So anyway, it was a long weekend, but let me tell you about what happened in this game.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. This is youth baseball we're talking about. They're 12U. All right. I'm just going to set the scene for you. Stone Cold. That's what I call my son, Stone Cold. His team, they're 12U major. Okay. Which is the highest level you can play in youth sports. All right. Major. So it goes single A, double A, triple A, major. All right. And in the state of Kansas, there's only a couple of major teams. And so that's why they do a lot of travel, because you have to get teams kind of all around that, so you're not playing the same 2 teams every weekend. Right. So for us, we play a lot of Nebraska, Iowa. We'll get some Colorado. Oklahoma. So we play a lot of those teams. Anyway, this weekend, we play a team that we had never faced before. They were 11U team, and they were really good, and they were playing up in 12U major this weekend, which happens. We've done that before with our team. Anyway, we should have beat them handedly, but we were horrible. Like, first of all, I had 4 kids out with some injuries, so we had to kind of bring in some kids. So it was just going to be a little bit of an off weekend anyway. I'm telling you, it was like we forgot how to play the game, and it was just awful, and things were unraveling. It was just really bad. And so whatever, parents weren't worked up. We have a really great team, great parents. We're just whatever. It just was a bad game. It's only pool play, one bracket play, whatever. Okay. So at the end of this game, once this other team beat us, and remember, we rallied back, we had a chance to win it in the bottom of the last inning, and just didn't happen. One of the dads for the other team, now mind you, we're 12U, they're 11U, okay? He comes running up to the fence and he's like, yeah, towards our kids, 11U, like rubbing it into our kids that we're younger and we just beat you. Totally rude, disrespectful. And none of our parents would ever think anything of, anything. They're very, very level-headed. But I have a problem when you disrespect kids. Not even if it's just my kid or my team, but any kid. Like, it's youth baseball. It should be fun. They should enjoy themselves, even in the wins and the losses. They need to learn from it. They need to learn teamwork and camaraderie and all the things that are important to learn and establish at a young age. And I feel like as a society in general, we have destroyed that, okay? Because they make it about the parents rather than about the kids. And this guy does that. And Jack, I just blurted out, well, I said, at least we have class, you a-hole. My mom was like, oh, Danny. And I was like, well, that's disrespectful. And I would have done that if it had been any team. If I would have saw anyone do that to another kid's team. Like, you don't do that. So then I was just kind of looking at him the whole time. I was so mad. They start walking over to leave, and this guy's wife, who's like this, big softball player looking chick, walks over to me thinking she's going to intimidate me. She doesn't know.
Power hitting softball player.
Yeah. I'm like, and I had space buns in my hair. I come from a graduation party. So I had space buns, a little sundress on. All right. And I'm just standing there looking like a little princess. And she thought she was going to intimidate me. And the team, they're like, oh, crap, because they know I'm not at all what I look like, okay? And which is one reason why I did so well in Survivor the first time, too, right? Just yeah. Out the skinny girl, the tall skinny girl, whatever. Anyway, she walks over thinking she's going to intimidate me. She walks over, she goes, do you have a problem? And I stood right up and I said, I sure do. And she's like, calling people an a-hole. And I go, well, when you act like one, I'm going to call you one. And I said, and she's like, well, that's just, I can't remember what exactly she said. And I go, well, here's the thing. You do realize you started that, right? And she's walking up to me asking me if I have a problem. And I said, you're asking me if I have a problem. You're the one that started that, first of all. Second of all, I'm going to say that whether it's my team or somebody else's team, if you disrespect a kid or a young youth team out here trying to enjoy their weekend, I have a problem with it. And I mean, it just shut her up. And then the guy who yelled it, which was her husband or baby daddy, whatever, I don't know. And he says, walking off, he's like, yeah, well, good, because since we lost, we had to play another game, okay? And he was like, well, yeah, have fun playing the rest of the day, like rubbing it in that they won. They didn't have to play again, and we were stuck in the heat and humidity for the day. And I said, well, good luck to you in bracket play. Hope you don't face us again. I mean, I was just, Jack, it was bad. It was so bad. And guess who we faced the very next day? That same team. Yeah. And guess what happened? We won 12-0.
Let's go.
We remembered how to play. I mean, those boys we were on point, phenomenal. Bats were on fire. I mean, it was just, anyway. And their coach came up to our coach and said, gosh, we haven't been beat like that he goes, I don't think we've ever been beat like that. And our coach said, well, you did kind of awake a sleeping giant, boys, after when your parents had made that comment. And, and I think our boys all knew they better not come home if they don't win that game, right, the next day. So, no, they did great, and it was fun. And, of course, we said nothing. We said absolutely nothing to them. We won and just, got ready for the next game. And we ended up going to the championship game, and we won. And the funny thing is my son pitched the championship game, and this son is not a pitcher, okay? He's like, once you've used up all your pitching, you bring in Stone, okay? Stone plays right field, sometimes first base, and he's not a real consistent hitter. Now, when he does hit, watch out, because he can knock it out there. He's hit a couple out of the park home runs, but we struggle with consistency. But anyway, he's not a pitcher, but he can give you some innings, right? He's fine. and he had to pitch a championship game. He walks up to me and goes, "Mom, I'm pitching the championship game." And I'm so nervous. I said, that's good. That means your adrenaline's going. Okay. You want that. And then he said, call Bo. That's my older son. He said, call Bo and make sure he's watching on Game Changer. I said, okay, I got it. I said, hey, just go out there, have fun, let your defense work, okay? Because he's got to work on his velocity so they can really hit those balls coming soft over the plate, right? And the defense was on point. And actually, because he was kind of off speed compared to what the team had faced all day, the slower velocity like really threw him off. And he pitched great, and they won 10-5. So he did all right. Stone
That's
did
great.
his job. The defense, they were on point, had his back, and we got business taken care of. So
did he have anything to say to you after your confrontation?
well, so he heard that parent, but he didn't hear me. He was in the dugout. They had no idea. I think he might have heard me yell that because I'm pretty sure. And then Casey said to Stone, because he said later on, he goes, I think your mom just almost got in a fight. So, oh boy. I mean, they do know that I'm sassy, but I hate it when people mistreat kids. Watch out. Watch out.
You just gave like Us Magazine or Cheat Sheet Biz or one of these sites that covers reality TV a headline. Former Survivor winner almost gets in fight at youth baseball game.
I'm pretty sure it will happen at some point. I had one time there was a guy. I don't know if I told you this before, but my oldest son. It was when he was quite a bit younger, and he was playing third base, and the game was real intense. It was very close, and he made a play at third, and it was close, and they called the kid out. And this parent was yelling over by where my son is at third. I saw it. He missed the tag. He's blah, 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 just rattling all this stuff. And my son's in tears because he was like maybe third grade, okay, or whatever. He thought he sent him the wrong. This guy's going nuts. And I'm over off the first base line, and I'm standing next to Casey. And it just flew out of me. I go, shut up, or I'm going to kick your ass. And he's like, and there was one little kid in the dugout looked around because I don't swear. And I'm just, but again, when it comes to kids, and then I ducked behind Casey. It's like, duck behind me, you're on your own there. Wow. Like the dude was huge. Like I'm really gonna, I guess the same thing with this lady. I thought maybe I could probably outrun them. That probably would happen, but I'd have to duck at the first swing, or I'd have to throw the first punch, and then Tommy Morrison get out of there. Remember when he fought George Foreman and he wore him out by running around in the ring or whatever? That's what I would have had to do. Try to catch me. So, anyway, it was crazy. Yes, and it was just a busy weekend, but I was a little mouthy, and I'm not proud of that, but it was a funny story. I guess
it's a great story.
A lot of rides on that day.
This concludes this week's edition of Youth Sports with Danni. Unless there's more, I mean.
No, but I'm going to tell you, anybody who has kids in youth sports, they get it. They know. They see everything. And, oh, man, it's just nuts. So,
well, this is a good spot.
Jack, I didn't get to take snacks this week. I always take myself, not the team. I load up my cooler with, like, the best snacks. And I have my folding chairs out. I mean, I'm eating good, watching the game, enjoying it. But because I was running and gunning to all these graduation parties and graduations, I didn't have any food. I was hungry. I was having PTSD from like Survivor and starving. So I don't like that.
What's the snack cooler look like? Like orange slices, beef jerky, like?
Yeah. So I love beef jerky. So I usually have
chopsticks.
That in there. Well, I have themes usually. Okay. So one theme, I had this little portable s'mores. Little light, you flame the ink, light up, and would make s'mores at the ballpark.
Wow.
Why not?
How cool is that?
Yeah. Another one was high tea. So my mom had this was when it was a little cooler out, and she had a hot tea, and I had a bunch of like macaroons, whichever the ones are that are colorful that are around, that with like little cheesecakes and all sorts of little high tea treats. And then sometimes it's just a hodgepodge of pickles. I'll have cheese and crackers, more of a charcuterie type, thing. Lots of fresh fruit. And then if you're really there a long time, I'll have sandwiches and all that for, the kids. But chips, I mean, I load it up. And all the little kids, little siblings know to come over to Miss Danni because I
Yes.
always have gummy bear, all sorts of fun stuff, and feed them all. And we have a really good time. That's how you do it, Jack, right there.
Absolutely. Yeah, that sounds fun. So, all right, time for me to
I'm
give
going
a
to let you
little.
talk now, Jack. I've been talking all the time.
No, it was great. I'm just gonna say, if you like youth sports, people, you guys should check out. We did a fun episode with Stephanie, also from Danny's first season of Survivor, Stephanie LaGrossa Kendrick, and Stephanie's been on this show 7 times total now. So people who listen to the show regularly know she's on it a lot. We did an episode with her nephew Philip LaGrossa, whose team got to the regional championship game for Toms River East Little League, and they were one game away from the Little League World Series. So we did a whole like hour and a half just talking youth sports with him. It was a
Yeah.
great time.
Oh, how fun. Yeah, I'm sure it had some good stories.
Yeah, so check it out. Okay, I'll share from my weekend because I had a pretty eventful weekend as well. So again, for people who've listened to the show, or maybe if you watch some reality TV, the story shouldn't be too foreign to you. But if you're a Survivor fan who's just listening to the show for first or second time, you just started listening. Jessica McCain France was on The Real World Portland. She was on 4 seasons of The Challenge on MTV, and she's been on this show. She's become a very dear friend of mine, and she met her husband about 4 years ago when he was just some minor league baseball player in A ball in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And they were just like, she basically abandoned her life as a chef and kind of doing some of the public appearance stuff with reality TV, but she had phased out of that. But she met her husband, JP. Now they've been together now for 4 years. They got married and now they have a baby. And JP, she gave up her entire life to be with him, to support him. And if anyone knows anything, the minor league baseball life
Oof.
is a grind. It's not
Yep.
very glamorous, not a lot of
No.
money. Jess is working full time as a mom, working remote, and then JP was working in the off season 40 hours a week at a hunting shop. So JP has also been on this show, and he's also a good friend of mine, and I'm close with them both. And JP came on in January. It was a very popular episode. But what was cool was a week ago, the Astros had this is the downside to the story is two of their pitchers, Luis Garcia and Jose Urquidy, got injured in back-to-back days. Garcia needs Tommy John surgery, and Urquidy could also be out for a long period of time. JP got called up less than 2 weeks ago. He made his major league debut in Seattle, not this weekend, but the weekend before that. 5 scoreless innings, pitched a gem. The Astros ended up losing, however, when he came out of the game. This past weekend, he made his second career start in Chicago. So I was able to go, and I got a picture here. This is me and Jess. If you guys can see on here, on if you're watching this, there's me and Jess. We went to the game. We had a great time. I sat with her and JP's family. I picked up Jess and her baby Liam from the airport, dropped them off at the team hotel, and then dropped them off at the airport again yesterday. So JP, he pitched in the 7th inning, only allowed 1 run. It was on a mistake pitch. He gave up 1 home run that Luis Robert just crushed. Other than that, he was near flawless. Only allowed
Wow.
3 hits, I believe, and he picked up his first career win. So that was my great story from the weekend.
Awesome. That is awesome. What a neat story. That's really cool. And I mean, they have to be just elated. That's a dream come true. Had he pitched? He hadn't pitched in the majors at all. That was the first time he got called up, right?
Yeah, so that was the first time he
Okay.
got called up, and then this was his second
Oh my gosh,
start.
what a moment! What a
Five,
moment for him.
Danny, he's 28. He's spent 5 years in the minors. He's a 14th
Wow.
round pick. He spent 5 years in college baseball. How's that for a story?
That moment. I mean, how amazing! And that his son got to be there too. That's so cool.
Yeah, and he baby Liam, I think he's like, let's see, he's about 4 months old now, I think. And Liam is becoming a big fan favorite on Twitter, as is Jess. Jess has done several interviews. She's had stories written about them. They're a great couple.
Uh,
Um, and they've been able to talk about their relationship with Christ through all of this and how God has guided them, and they've remained patient on waiting on the Lord. But Liam, the reason why people love Liam is JP has a big, big mustache.
uh,
And Liam has a pacifier with a fake little mustache on top of the
uh,
pacifier.
Stop it. How cute. I love that. That's awesome.
So
How
that was
neat.
that was my weekend. We had a great time, and good news is JP's pitching well. Looks like he's going to be staying in this rotation for at least a little bit and be pitching next week in Milwaukee. So I'm gonna go up and see him in Milwaukee.
Oh, awesome. That is great. It reminds me of, I think we talked a little bit before about Ben Zobrist story and how he was, I mean, just overlooked, right? All throughout, in high school, going to college, he wasn't recruited by
Yeah,
anyone.
all
And
of at
worked,
Nazarene University.
yeah, and then worked his way up, was at Dallas Baptist. And then he did get drafted, but he spent time in the minors. And he talks about that in his book about how, it was such a grind and a struggle. And he finally got called up. And it didn't go very well for him. He got sent back down, and how he went through this awful depression and thought about quitting. But he just stayed encouraged and, kept at it for a little bit longer. And then look what happened. He gets called back up, and, he's winning World Series with the Royals. He's winning World Series with the Cubs. He's, breaking the curse there in Chicago, and he's like a big deal, and he's MVP. I mean, it's just an amazing story of, because so many people feel deflated, so many people feel defeated and like discouraged and about to give up on their dreams. And if they are, like, that's a really great story to look at, because he was in that spot, and if he had, he would have never had his dream become a reality. So it's just a really neat story. I love Ben Zobrist. We talk about him all the time at our house, because he's the boys' favorite, all-time favorite baseball player. So
He's a great choice, and yeah, I think a lot of people forget that was Ben Zobrist's story, because I remember in 2008 when the Rays had that first year where they made the postseason, first time in franchise history, and they had this like just kind of group of misfit toys that came together and won the division under Joe. Or I don't know, they might not have won the division that year. I can't remember, but they made the playoffs. I think
yep.
they did win the division. I can't.
Did they? Was
The
that what they
Yankees.
were?
I know the Yankees missed it, so it was either them or the Red Sox, and they played each other in the ALCS.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, anyway, but I remember watching. This is something that happens every year in baseball. So you get these feel good stories, and you start to think, when's this going to end? Because right
Mm-hmm.
now, Pittsburgh Pirates 2 weeks ago in my power rankings, I had them as the second or third best team, and now they'd probably be back in the middle of the pack because they lost 7 straight games. They're back to kind of being closer to 500 when they were 12 games above 500 just a couple weeks ago. But when you have these feel good stories, sometimes you just wait, like, how long is this going to last? And
Right.
I remember watching Baseball Tonight that year, and the Rays are just in first place. And it's just like this keeps going and going and going. I remember watching it in June or July. And I remember them talking about this Ben Zobrist guy. He's just, who is this guy? Like, what? How, if they can get contributions out of guys like Ben Zobrist at the time, it's like this guy's playing shortstop. He's playing all over the field. And there have been some utility players before, but he really became kind of like a face of what a utility player looks like, especially as a switch
Yep.
hitter. So, yeah, he carved out a role
Yeah.
for himself very nicely.
Well, and then when he came to Kansas City, and we were so thirsty for winning anything, right? Winning season. We were just such an underdog story. It's amazing, but so it was a perfect fit for him, and then to come in and just be freaking amazing, in Kansas City and helping us win a World Series here. I'm gonna tell you what, this place was nuts during the playoffs and the World Series. I mean, because we hadn't won with the Chiefs, it had been since '69, right? And they hadn't
Super Bowl
won yet.
4, right?
Okay. Yeah, they were. Yeah, a long time. And then the Royals had been since '85 that we had won, and you just kind of expected every year, we just go enjoy a few games and whatever. You just don't expect the team to do anything. And so when they started making the run, the first World Series, and of course we were, made it to the World Series and lost and won the second one. But anyway, it just was such an exciting time. And I can't even begin to tell you how much money we made off Kansas City shirts at that point, because you couldn't press them fast. So people would buy anything with the Kansas City on it, or, blue and white. And it was just electric. And of course it's in the fall. So everybody's pumpkins that we decorate and put out were all Royals themed. Everything was Royals. People had blue lights on their house. Like, it was just such an incredible run. And what's so exciting about baseball to me during the playoffs, if your team is in it, is because it is so many games. Where the Super Bowl, yeah, it's amazing and it's a big hyped up one game, but in the World Series and just the playoffs, you have so many games. So it's just so exciting for a long period of time. So much more fun.
So much fun.
I love baseball.
Baseball's the best. I know it stinks right now that the Royals aren't good, but sorry, go ahead.
Well, I've been there many times with the Royals. So, yeah. I mean, I'm not a bandwagon fan. I still stick with them through it. I'm a Royals fan through and through. Like, that's my team. But I also enjoy the Dodgers because we have so many ties to the Dodgers, their family, because my family that's out in LA and they have that Dream Center and they work with a lot of the Dodgers, work with the Dodgers organization. They've always been so generous and so wonderful. So we have that. Plus, I grew up going to Dodger games when I was little too, when we go out to visit family in California. So, I have a lot of good memories there. But I'm a Royals girl, and it's going to be a rough year, but we're used to that. Who knows? Maybe next year they just break out and have a freak season, and we find ourselves back in the World Series hunt.
I don't think it's going to happen next year, but yeah.
Listen, you would have never thought it would have happened back in 2014 either.
True.
So.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's baseball. You know what I think was so interesting about those Royals teams? And by the way, like a vast majority of the players on that team no longer in Major League Baseball. I mean, it's been 8 years, but a lot of these guys are gone, which is, unfortunate. I mean, some of them are still around. But what I thought was so interesting about that team is I know a lot of people like to give maybe the Cleveland Indians and the Tampa Bay Rays and some other teams credit for bullpenning, but really the first version of it, now granted Kansas City wasn't using an opener where they were going to start the game with a relief pitcher, but their strategy was, let's just get 5 innings out of our starting pitcher. The pitching rotation really wasn't great past Johnny Cueto. But then you had this lockdown bullpen of Greg Holland, Kelvin Herrera, Wade Davis, Ryan Madsen. I'm looking at their bullpen right now. And then I think they also had, Willie Peralta too, I think.
Yeah, but it's funny because Cueto, he was not even there when we were talking about starters the year before.
Yeah, the year before. We
that run, which was when we won that wild card game in Kansas City. It was louder than Arrowhead Stadium when that happened. I just have to tell you, that's how I mean, I've never seen anything like it. It was so awesome to be part of. But anyway, they didn't have that superstar lineup, but they did have a great bullpen. Yes. Yep.
They had, instead of Cueto, they had. Sorry.
No, you go ahead. You're good.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say, instead of Cueto, they had big game James Shields that year. And he was amazing for them that year.
Yep. That's right.
Yeah.
Was it Ben Zobrist? Was it in Kansas City or somewhere where he actually came in and pitched? I think it was Kansas City. And I'm saying he's a true utility player, right? Come in and pitch. You're giving up on the game, though, when you're bringing in guys who are not, it's not like Little League where everybody gets to pitch and you get brought in, But anyway.
Do you like seeing position players pitch?
Oh, I love it. You don't?
No, I love it too. I think it's like last year or coming into this year, like Major League Baseball, they started putting these weird rules where it's like you can only use a position player if it's your team's up 6 runs, or it's like, or if your team's down 10 runs, or it's like they have these weird. I don't understand why that's a problem for anybody.
Yeah.
It's fun. Yeah. Like when Pujols pitched last year, like they run that on, I got the MLB.TV and they do those commercial breaks where it's like a flashback to a fun moment from last season. And that's one of the moments. And now they make it's like they don't want that to happen. I don't understand why it just gets me heated, Danny.
That's
Too much
funny. Yeah, no, it
governance.
doesn't. I agree. I mean, I would have liked to understand the thinking behind that because what's the big deal, you know? And
I
it's
just
so
saw a
fun to
bunch
see
of
them come in.
journalists. There were a bunch of journalists last year that were like, I'm over position players pitching. It's not cute. It's not fun or whatever. And I think they just like
Totally fine.
answered to people who wrote that. And I'm a journalist and
Yeah.
I feel the exact opposite.
Opposite. Yeah. Hmm. Well, it's kind of fun. I think it's funny to see them come in. And there
It's
was a
hilarious.
now this is in college baseball. A couple weeks back, a Ole Miss player, position player, came in and pitched for him, and they were making fun of him. They interviewed all his teammates afterwards. You know, what did you think about this and that? And they were just having a heyday with it. But the kid who'd pitched, he says at the end, he's like, well, I might not be able to wipe my butt tomorrow, but it was fun that because his arm obviously was going to be so sore because he wasn't conditioned to pitch, you know. So people don't realize how sore you get from that, especially I mean, even if you are seasoned, you're still getting sore. But having my oldest son does pitch, you know, he is a pitcher. The other one, you know, he comes in like I explained occasionally, sometimes, um, and you know how they have to really take care of that arm, ice that arm, heat that arm, you know, go in and get therapy on it and just everything to keep it healthy. And just even when you are in shape and seasoned, how sore it gets. And that's why as a parent, you really have to be careful. Um, Luckily, Casey, my husband's very knowledgeable. And so he really can be on top of Bo not pitching too much and making sure. But some coaches out there would just use kids up. And it's sad, all the injuries you see so young to these kids' arms. And fortunately, our both our boys have been with some, you know, really knowledgeable coaches. That hasn't been an issue, but we've seen it with a lot of kids, and it's crazy how they use these kids up so young. And it's amazing to me how many injuries you see so young, and then to see guys make it to the major level and have so many years pitching. I'm like, how do you do that? How do you do that? Because it's just like your body isn't going to take it.
Well, Danny, you bring
So
up something that I find very interesting from Major League Baseball recently is I don't have the numbers in front of me, but what it seems to be an uptick in the amount of injuries to starting pitchers thus far in the season.
mhm,
And my belief as to why we're seeing so many injuries right now is because this role of what a starting pitcher had been for 100 years has changed because of the bullpenning strategy of let's have this guy only throw 5 innings and then he can max out and go max effort, max velocity. And when you're throwing max effort, that's where I believe the injuries are going to happen more often rather
yeah,
than if you're pacing yourself to throw a whole nine inning game, you're not emptying the tank the way that you would if you know you're only going to like they do this stuff where it's like we don't want the starting pitcher to see the lineup the third time through the lineup. So I think that is the reason why we're seeing this.
yeah. I mean, it's just well, it's amazing to me when I see these guys who have these great pitching careers and are able to stay healthy that long. It's just, and why now here, this is a thing. I love sports and I feel like I'm somewhat knowledgeable just because of being a fan, right? My whole life. But I don't ever want to be one of these people who tries to act like, oh, I know what it's like because, you know, I know I've never
Right.
played baseball. I played with my brothers, right? I've never played football. I've just watched a lot. So as a fan and a spectator, I'm always curious, like, what is it about quarterbacks? Okay, and is it the throwing motion that they have that you don't see the arm issues that you see like in pitchers? Is it because the mechanics, or is it not being used as much? Why is that?
It's a good question. I think it's a different way you're throwing. As you
Mm,
got when you hold a football, you kind of like it's more of like an elbow kind of launch type of motion. With the
yeah,
with the with the baseball, I think you're using your whole body. Not everyone uses that, but like Tim
yeah,
Lincecum was such a small guy. In order for him to get velocity, he had to basically put every muscle in his body, every ounce of his body into every single pitch that he threw. And I mean, it's just a different mechanical movement. But Brock Purdy is
yeah.
having Tommy John surgery.
Right.
which is
Yeah.
rare for a
I was actually
quarterback.
thinking that when I was talking about it. Yeah. It's just that's the thing. It's not like it's unheard of, right? But you just don't hear of it like you do with baseball. And I guess, I think back, like, to hearing my son was learning to pitch, about that reach back, throw. So I guess, yeah, that maybe there's that more strain on the,
Well,
the
also
shoulder
another thing,
motion.
Danny, is if you think about it, right now pitchers are like 100 pitches is you're done after you throw 100.
Mhm.
Before that again, you guys throwing 130 pitches as not even more than like a decade ago. It really wasn't that long
Right.
ago. Stephanie's husband Kyle Kendrick, we were talking about this because he just never saw baseball kind of moving. It was surprising to him to see this, the way that it shifted and how they manage starting pitchers. But let's say you throw 80 pitches. You throw 80 pitches max effort, or if you're a reliever and you do that once every 5 days,
Mhm.
or if you're a reliever, it's a different thing because you're entirely emptying the tank and you're pitching multiple days a week, but you're not throwing that many pitches. Whereas with football, you're throwing 40 passes a game, 50 passes a
Right.
game, and that's only once a week. So that could also be a part of it too.
I wonder with like Stephanie's husband, I think now you'd probably know this. I think he was a quarterback in high school
Yeah,
too.
I think so. Yeah, he
Is that
played. He played. He loved football. He played basketball too. I think he was a three-sport athlete.
yes? But the reason I wonder, like, if he, when he was younger, like, how often he had an arm strain or how often he had any kind of injury as a kid. I'd be curious to know because of all the pitching and then throwing in, football and all, which basketball, I mean, you're not going to have, you shouldn't have Tommy John surgery when it comes to basketball. But
Something would have to really go wrong. Too many
yeah,
baseball like passes, like
yeah.
heaving it down court. Like if that'd be the whole
Hey,
strategy, is we're just gonna
but
Christian Leitner every single play.
hey, if you're in that situation, Kyle on your team, that's a guy you'd want doing that, right? He'd
Yeah.
get it right there. He'd have the velocity for it. He'd be able to pinpoint it. He'd be, watch out. But anyway, um, I'd be curious to see like what if he had a lot of any injuries, youth baseball / football, because I'm sure he was used a lot being an outstanding pitcher and then a football player. So my husband was not a quarterback or a pitcher, so he didn't have any of those problems. He just, he didn't really have any. He shattered his foot his senior year of college, and they said he'd never play again. And he was going to be about a third-round draft pick, and and then that didn't happen because he shattered his foot. And then look, I mean, he obviously ended up playing again and played for 16 years and had this incredible career. But linemen, it's just that repetitive hits and hits and hits, and I think I told you this too. This is not fair. I'm the one with arthritis so bad in my hands. My right foot's messed up. He played in the NFL for 16 years, played in college before that, and then high school, and then youth football, and he is like fine. He's just fine. I'm like, I mean, I'm glad, but I'm like, how does that happen? I was the distance runner over here, and I've got arthritis so bad in my hands I can hardly like hold a pen. So anyway, sorry. But back to baseball. I'd be curious to know that, like, yeah, with Kyle and you got to encourage parents to stay on their kids and on the coaches to make sure that they're okay. And isn't it interesting, like the different types of pitchers? Like you have your guys who can just really throw the fastball and they're throwing, high 90s. And we have a kid it was last year, 8th grade, throwing 92. His fastball was. I mean,
Wow, that's
yeah. And
insane.
he already committed to Arkansas. But here's what's funny. Bo pitched against him the other night, and Bo does not throw 90 plus. Okay. But Bo has really great command of his pitches. And so it's interesting, like when you see those matchups, like you've got the guys who can throw really hard, but then you've got these guys who have so much movement on their ball, or have great guys who have great command of their pitches, like Zach Greinke. I don't think he throws exceptionally hard, but
Not anymore.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's funny. It seems like he was just drafted by the Royals years ago, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it seems like it was yesterday. It was years ago.
There were
But I
like
mean,
a couple years
can,
there where it was like, when's he gonna figure it out? Because he's got this amazing promise, and
yeah.
he figured it out. He's gonna go to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and it's interesting, but here, like not throwing as hard, but because they can they have a lot of movement on their ball. It was just funny the different pitchers and different strategies and how you match up this pitcher against that team, and it's all like a big chess game.
Well, this brings us to, you mentioned your husband he was a projected third round pick, and he went undrafted,
Uh-huh.
right? So
Yes.
this reminds me of, well, and we'll touch on the NFL draft here because it was in Kansas City. But one thing I think is really fascinating with the draft and with the fascination with the NFL Combine, the way people will tune in and watch it every single day. And, I get it. I understand the appeal. It's fun. And if your team isn't very good, you're very hopeful about who are you going to draft. And some teams have those high picks almost every single year. I won't say who, you know who I'm talking about. But the thing with the combine is in the way that we assess players. One thing that always kind of feels a little silly to me is when you look at a player, and especially if you're talking about in the first round. So if you're talking about in the first round, you want to draft a quarterback such as an Anthony Richardson who went with the number 4 overall pick. The Colts are looking at that guy and all the physical tools of what he's capable of doing. And
Yeah.
I get that. But in the
Yep.
first round, if I'm going to commit a first round pick and I'm going to commit that kind of make that kind of commitment to a player that says you're the future of our franchise, we hope you're a quarterback for the next 15 years, I want a guy who completes passes and did all of those things that you think he can do but hasn't done it yet. So
Yeah.
it's like in Moneyball where Billy Beane says if he's a good hitter, why doesn't he hit good? Like that's my kind of thing. And the baseball version of that is okay, this guy throws 100 effortlessly, but he can't find the strike zone. But we're going to teach him command and he'll be okay. No,
Yeah.
I want the guy who throws strikes and has great
Yeah.
command and stuff, not the guy who's
Yeah.
got the overpowering stuff but can't
Right.
find the strike zone.
It's so interesting, like talking at the youth level baseball, okay, and both our boys play at the major level. I told you, so ours are not any superstar, but we see some superstars along the way, right? The guys are like, oh, okay, watch out for this kid. And to hear my husband just talk about different talent and stuff in kids, and one of them, like some of these kids who are throwing 90 but can't last 2 innings in a game because they have no control or no command. And then you see this kid who does but hasn't grown yet, right? He's not quite the size. I'm like, if you were to draft right away, why would you not take that guy who's like, okay, he's proven this, and he just hasn't grown yet or hasn't got big enough yet to get that velocity. But watch out for that kid, because once he does, he's going to be trouble for you because he already knows how to pitch. And there's one kid that that my oldest son used to play with, and I remember my husband saying this is going to be the best pitcher in the area eventually. Now we're kind of seeing that start to happen because the kid had so much movement on his ball, but he just hadn't hit his growth spurt yet. And now he's starting to grow, and you're like, oh wow, all of a sudden he's found himself starting a varsity game as a freshman, and you're like, yep, because that kid's getting big, and he had all the tools. He just needed to get the size. Anyway, that's so true, and I feel like that's the way with the combine. And you and I have talked about that before, where so many times they just put that emphasis on, oh, he runs this and he can bench press that. And well, what has he done in the game, and what is his personality and his attitude and his demeanor with his teammates and stuff. And is he a good teammate? Because that leadership skill is going to take him so much farther than just some guy who has all the speed and all the strength, but no desire and is a terrible teammate, which you've seen so many times that happens.
Well, you said it. We've talked about this privately, and not to like release our private conversation, but what you said was I
I'm an
thought you
open
hit
book.
it the nail on the head when you said the combine measures arm strength, speed, strength, size, weight, height. It does not measure heart.
Yep.
That was so well said, Danny.
Yep. Yep. And that, boy, you can't. It's just like somebody who's gritty, right? And the person that has grit that just isn't going to quit till they figure it out and get back up. Like, that's who I want. That's who I want on my team. I love the movie Moneyball. My oldest son watches that over and over and over again because I'm like, man, he that was his motto. I mean, he took a bunch of guys that had heart and who'd get on base, right? Find a way.
Yeah.
And it's just so good because that's the way to win. You want to. I'd rather take a team of dirtbags than superstars, right? Because they're gonna be gritty and they're gonna find their way and they're not afraid to work.
Well, the thing with the movie Moneyball that I'm going to have to point out, because if I don't point it out, people are going to point out that I didn't point it out, is the fact that the movie story omits some key pieces of that story with the A's team. It wasn't just these guys get on base and we can get these guys on the cheap. There was a lot of that. But it wasn't the Scott Hatterberg story that year. It was about who they signed and who they drafted and developed. And Miguel Tejada was the league MVP that year. It's funny, Moneyball, the movie, and I say this as someone who, it's one of my all-time favorite movies. It's just funny because there's no mention of the fact that they had the Cy Young and the MVP on their team in Barry Zito and Miguel Tejada. And then Tim Hudson also won a Cy Young. And they had Mark Mulder, and there was no mention of their pitching staff. So it wasn't just the revolutionary stuff that we saw in the movie, but that was the start of a movement in the sabermetric community, and they were really the first team that started that trend.
Right, but that's not Hollywood, right? Like that's not gonna bring people to.
It's a movie. You want it to be a fun movie, and they made it the best version of that movie. Because there's a version of that movie, if they're trying to make it documentary style, like a true biopic, it could have been really boring. It could have been really boring.
Yeah. Oh, true. Yes, but that storyline too gives a lot of hope to the people too that are, like I said, gritty, that are out there fighting their way, in any professional situation. And I think that's what's, really cool. Where sometimes, what is it, hard work will beat talent when talent doesn't work hard. That was just kind of the way it was in that movie, where you get a bunch of people who've got the heart, and look what happens.
Absolutely.
I loved it.
So
it was fun. What's your favorite baseball movie of all time?
Oh, great question. I would say Moneyball. It's my favorite. I mean, if I have to pick something other than Moneyball, Major League would probably be my number 2. How about you?
It was so funny. Major League was funny. I love the Bad News Bears. And Sandlot, I think those are, man, The Natural.
Oh, The Natural's a great one. I feel like the kids haven't seen The Natural these days. Like it's a longer movie. Yeah. I don't know. And then Rick Ankiel ended up being like the real life Natural.
Yeah, it was one of my favorites. There's so many good baseball movies. Field of Dreams, and we actually are playing a tournament this summer in Iowa that's not far from there. So we're gonna go over and see the actual Field of Dreams. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, I have to make a confession.
Uh-oh.
Bull Durham, not one of my favorites.
Yeah, I saw it. I remember seeing it. I honestly couldn't even tell you much about it.
Yeah.
Enough. It's like, nah.
It's like the baseball scenes are fun because I will say, like, there are pieces of that movie that, like, it's hitting on that, what the minor league life is like, and I liked that. Mm-hmm. However, it's like more of a relationship movie than it is a baseball movie. Like, I would take Fever Pitch over Bull Durham.
Yeah. I don't need that relationship. I want baseball.
Well, I'm saying it's in the same category as Fever Pitch. I'd rather watch Fever Pitch.
Yeah, Fever Pitch. Yeah. No, I agree. Okay.
And the other thing, Danny, one more thing. Is Tim Robbins looks so unathletic when he's pitching. He like turns his entire body and like closes his eyes. And I've never seen a pitcher do that before. It bothers me.
Oh, that's so funny. It's hard to watch.
But like in Major League, all those guys were former baseball players. Like Charlie Sheen was pitched in high school, so they all look pretty athletic, and that adds the authenticity of it. Go ahead.
Oh my gosh, it was so good. Major League was just fun. And I feel like everybody on a team has a wild thing, right? We have one on the Stones team. This little kid, country boy, Easton White is his name. He's got 5 brothers. Okay, this kid, he just can smoke the ball. It's fun, but you don't know where it's going to go sometimes. And you're like, I hate to be the batter. Easton White. I always think Wild Thing when he walks out there. I meant to ask you this a few times that we've had our conversations, and I keep forgetting. Who is your favorite baseball player of all time? You just get to pick one. I don't want, well, pitcher would be this, and if I want you like just your guy.
Okay, from can I give you one from before that I never got to see play, and then one that, like, if there's one player that I would have.
I'm already telling you all time, but no, that's fine. Go ahead.
Because it's like so my all-time favorite as a kid was Mickey Mantle, but I never got to actually live through watching him play. So that's why I like to say if there's a guy that I was kind of like my favorite watching play, I would say, man, the Josh Hamilton, like 3 or 4 years, it was like his life was like a movie. So I'd probably say Josh Hamilton. Yeah. But it's tough. There are a few others, but I won't say the others because you don't want me to.
Yeah.
But that was like, I like that kind of. Yeah, I mean, that's just kind of like, I think that kind of speaks to what kind of players I like, though, is kind of like that, like, 5-tool player who can roam center field, has a great arm, and then hits for contact, hits for power. So Mike Trout, I love watching Mike Trout. And then the two from my childhood, though, that were like my heroes were Derek Lee and Ichiro. Yeah. Okay. How about you? I broke your rules, by the way. I'm sorry.
No, you gave me your favorite. It's okay. You can have runner-up, first runner-up, second runner-up, third runner-up, you know. My all-time favorite, and we need to do a podcast where I can wear this jersey on podcasts. I need to do this, okay, is Mark Gubicza. Not one of the greatest of all time, but that was my favorite player. Royals pitcher, and I think now he may be a like Fox contributor, broadcaster, maybe. But I loved Mark Gubicza. You know, when I was a little kid, I was such a big Royals fan, and he was my favorite pitcher. And I mean, I knew his stats, I knew everything about Mark Gubicza. Loved him as a Royal. And so he was actually on. You would think George Brett, right? Or you think Bo Jackson, for me being a baseball fan, being a Kansas City girl. Nope, Mark Gubicza, my favorite, and I have his jersey. It's got autographed like 6 times. Okay, because once was not enough. And back in the day, you could go to Royal Stadium before the game, and the pitchers would be behind the stadium doing sprints, warming up, and you could go back there and see them. They'd stop and talk to you. They'd sign autographs. It was the coolest thing. Like, that doesn't happen nowadays, right? It was so much fun. But our son Bo is named after Bo Jackson. So, I mean, I did love Bo Jackson. And then, of course, everybody in Kansas City loves George Brett. But sorry, George Brett, you're not my favorite. It's Mark Gooby. We called him Gooby. Everybody called him Gooby.
Have you met Gooby?
Well, no, I haven't. Other than just to, you know, when I was a little kid, getting my autograph from him behind Royal Stadium.
But I mean, like, now that you're Danni Boatwright. He hasn't met Danni Boatwright. You would think
that was so cool if you went, you know what, Mark Gubicza, you have no idea, but this little bitty kid who's, you know, little tomboy, little diehard Royals player, is your favorite player. I even, when it was his birthday, hey, check this out. I think it's August 14th. I think that's Mark Gubicza's birthday. I think I still remember that.
Let's see. It is August 14th, 1962.
Look at that. Yes.
Good job. Wow.
And I had a banner that I made and put it out the day he was pitching, and it was like his birthday. It said, "Happy birthday, Gooby."
And he does the Angels broadcasts. So that I've heard him on there because I watch all these games. So I'll be listening for him now. It's just funny because, he played 1984 to 1997. So 13 years with the Royals. Kansas City Royals Hall of Fame, World Series champion, 2-time All-Star, 1 year with the Angels. He works for the Angels now.
Look at that. Come back to Kansas City, Mark Gubicza. Gooby. but yeah, I was a big fan. He was so nice. I remember I was a little girl there. He was just signing my, jersey. I probably had a million other things that him sign there too. But anyway, he was my favorite. He was just awesome. And yeah, that'd be funny if he just knew like that little girl ended up, to go be runner up to Miss USA and won Survivor and all sorts of random crazy fun things. Anyway, kind of fun. We'll have to send him that clip. Hi, Gooby.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah, we'll see. Is he on Twitter? We'll do something here with this. So what number was he?
23.
Did you wear 23 because of him? Like, did you try to wear number 23 when you played sports?
Well, no. You think I would, right? No. Basketball, I was number 33 because I was a big Larry Bird fan, and I'd say I was a shooter, but I mean, if we were some big school, I would have never been a shooter because I went to a little school, and everybody plays and has a role. Anyway, no, I was a guard, and I was a fan of Larry Bird, so I had number 33. And then track and cross country, like I didn't have a number, so I don't remember if I had a number on our jerseys. I don't remember.
No, I don't think so.
And on, but anyway, yeah, so that's what I was, and yeah, and
because I wore number 7 in every sport if I could pick my number. And I mean, the first time I got number 6, and I cried. I was so mad. I was like 8 years old, and I wanted number 7. I was trying to get this kid to trade me the number, and he just wouldn't do it. And I was just
that's hilarious.
Yeah, Mickey Mantle, number 7.
Yep. Okay, so if I look like I'm a little distracted here, y'all, I am just driving up into Carloop. Hold on. And then, because I like to be first, you know what I mean? I'm so competitive. There's one lady who always beats me, man. And I'm just like, okay, what do you do that you're here earlier than I am? I get to work my own schedule. She beats me. I swear. I think it's a contest. There we go. My kids are both number 13 baseball, and Stone is 16. So it's funny because you would think that Bo would be number 16, right? The Bo had been number 5 for a long, long time, and he was a third baseman, and so that kind of makes sense. But now in high school he's number 13, and that's because he's an underclassman, and so he didn't get to pick his number till the rest of them had all taken theirs. So anyway, yeah, that's that.
Very cool. All right, so we only got a few more minutes here, but the draft was in Kansas City. Unfortunately, you weren't able to make it, but I'm sure you've had friends who went, and you kind of got to experience it a little bit from the outside. So how was that weekend?
You know what? We're really fortunate because in the springtime in Kansas City, like you just don't know what kind of weather you're going to get, right? So we were pretty lucky, except for one day it was super windy. So some outdoor activities were canceled and stuff because of the wind. But all in all, I think Kansas City did a really great job with the draft. And you have such a great fan base here, and they all showed up. And it was, I think everything went really well. And from all my friends that did get to go, had a wonderful time. They're all able to park and get down there, and they had a really great time. So I think all in all it went really well as far as that side of things. And it'll be interesting to see all the draft picks, how they go. But my favorite part, now I didn't get to watch. I think I told you that I had a ton of family in town. We had all these games. Yeah. It was crazy. So I kind of, watched little clips go, here and there. But I thought it was just so fun. All the presenters were just a real hoot.
Did they ask you to be a presenter?
No, hell
they
no.
Should.
They should have. I mean, I would have come out there and I would have just rocked it, man.
Yeah.
No, but like I thought it was really cool seeing Travis Kelce, Mama Kelce's, Travis Kelce's mom out there. That was a lot of fun. And then I'm a huge Eric Stone Street fan, so he got to come out. And he's a big Chiefs fan, of course, and he did a great job. Now, I can't remember who it was for the Cowboys who presented announced their first round draft pick. But it was funny because he was talking about respecting Kansas City and what they'd accomplished, and great Lamar Hunt. But the 5-time champion Cowboys, like, rubbing it in that we're still the little little kid compared to them and their empire, right? And it was really fun because the Kansas City fans were all booing and giving them a hard time, and I thought that it was a lot of fun when people come out there and talk smack. Of course, that's expected, especially when you're the reigning Super Bowl champs. That it was a lot of fun. I thought they did a great job. What did you think about draft picks overall? Was there anyone that you were really surprised by or disappointed with?
Yeah, I think the best plays again, you and I have chatted about this a little bit off the air, but my main thing, I watch college. I'm a much bigger college football fan than I am an NFL fan at this stage in my life. Wasn't always that way. Just my love for the NFL isn't what it was in the 2000s when the game was much more physical and there was more defense. And I know we had to make some changes to make the game safer, but I also think we've gone a little too overboard where there's no more defense anymore. And
Yeah.
so every Saturday, like, my sister and I will just be watching college football as much as we can. Like, I have 2 screens. I'll just watch it all day long. If I can go to a sports bar and watch even more games with friends, I'll do that. Like, I am so locked into college football. And the thing that I pay the most attention to is quarterback performance and these quarterback prospects. And to me, I think what was really interesting was there was only one quarterback in this draft that I would have taken with a first-round pick, and that's Bryce Young, the number 1 overall pick. I think Bryce Young will be a top 10 quarterback in this league. I think he's the best passer in the league, and I know there were some reservations about his size. I don't think that's going to be a huge deal. Drew Brees had a great career as a quarterback that was, 6 foot or maybe under 6 foot. So I'm not too concerned with him. I actually thought the Bears, it was interesting to me that the Bears ended up trading that first overall pick as early as they did, because I'm not a big believer in Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields, I get it. I know people are excited and it's fun to watch, but there's a reason why the Bears won only 3 games last year. And if he was a true franchise quarterback, I think you'd have seen a little more at this point, even if his team is terrible. You'd see a little more. So to me, it was interesting that they ditched that first-round pick as the number 1 overall pick as early as they did, because they traded a month before the draft, and I would think that teams would up their offer as you move closer to draft day. So Bryce Young, clear number 1 quarterback. CJ Stroud, I wasn't surprised that he was someone that was taken with a 2nd overall pick. I am not entirely out on CJ Stroud, but it's just like, to me, it's like if you're taking a quarterback with a top 5 pick, like, you're proposing to your girlfriend. Like, you want to make sure, like, this is the one, right? And there are question marks with CJ Stroud for me.
Yeah.
But then I was very surprised. The thing that surprised me the most was the pre-draft hype on Anthony Richardson and Will Levis, neither of whom I thought were exceptional quarterbacks in college. And they had no shortage of opportunities. Neither of them showed a lot of accuracy. It's a similar thing where they look at the tools and they love the tools. So Richardson gets taken with the 4th overall pick by the Colts, and the Titans took Levis. I think it was in the 2nd round. And yeah, it was in the 2nd round. They take Will Levis, and they essentially pull the plug on Malik Willis, who they drafted a year ago, which confirmed how I had assessed Malik Willis a year ago. I didn't think he would be a very good. I thought maybe, he could have a career as a backup, but I didn't see him as a franchise quarterback. So 2 things I found very interesting: the Titans pulling the plug on Malik Willis after 1 year, and the New Orleans Saints also drafting a quarterback a year after they selected Matt Corral in the 3rd round, because they took Jake Haener in the 4th round. So it felt like, and I like Corral more than I do Willis as a player, and I honestly, I couldn't even tell you if Corral even played this year because I didn't pay that close attention, I guess. But so I just undermined my own credibility. However, that was surprising to me to see 2 quarterbacks that were, some of the first 5 quarterbacks drafted in last year's draft, looks like the writing's on the wall, and they're not going to be sticking around much longer. As there's not much, they don't see, those teams don't see a future for them.
It kind of goes back to what we were talking about, like with the combine and stuff. You know, it's kind of like with a girl, right? Like a girlfriend or something. You're all the bells and whistles. You're enticed by all this beauty and everything.
Yeah.
But then once you are like starting to date this person in this relationship, then you find out there's no substance there, and the whole relationship.
Yeah, or she's crazy. She's crazy, or she's got no personality.
Yes. And you're like, oh wow, I was totally just blinded by all of these stats by this player, but then it just doesn't pan out. And
did you know any of those girls in the pageant circuit? Were there any girls like that?
Oh gosh, yes.
So there's our example.
Yep. But I will tell you, my best friends came from the pageant world too. So I had a lot of really great friends in that world. But we've seen it all. There's a whole nother show. We get a whole podcast from pageants. But pageants get a bad rap, but actually they're.
Oh, I agree. I mean, I'm really close. One of my great friends, Haley Jordan, who's a sports reporter, has been on this show. Mm-hmm. She was Miss Indiana, and she's just the greatest. I love her.
Yeah. Oh, there's so many wonderful young women, and pageants were great for helping develop, like, just even with broadcasting skills, as many interviews as you go in, and then you have to interview a bunch of people. It's great. But anyway, I think it's exciting for me with the draft to see what happens, you know, a year, 2 years, a few years down the road, because just like Tom Brady, was he a 6th round? Was he a 6th round?
Yeah, 6th rounder. Yeah.
And it was when was it Bledsoe went down injured, is when Brady finally got his chance, right? So to see how some of those mid to late round guys pan out and become superstars, and I can only imagine guys at that level are so competitive, right? So when they're drafted a little later, and I'm sure they're happy they were drafted. I mean, obviously you're great to have made it to that point, but have that chip on their shoulder, that competitive nature, that like, I'm going to stick it to you. I'm going to make you wish you drafted me, first round. So I like to see a few years down the road how they pan out. It's fun to go back and look at. And I think this year in the draft that they did show, I don't know if it was on, day 2 or whatever, but some of the former draft picks and how some, were, ended up being a disappointment, and some were super, and that's always that's just interesting, right? So it'd be fun to really look through the draft. And like, I obviously have been I could tell you so much about youth baseball, right? And high school baseball's top players, top teams in the country, but because that's my life right now. Back in the day, I was really into football because I was hosting a fantasy football show, but it would be fun to really get invested and see who was picked in late rounds, and watching kids as they're coming out here from school, and then what they end up doing here in a few years. How that works out. Who's really the superstars out of this class?
100%. I mean, I think last year Brock Purdy was the last pick of the draft. He was Mr. Irrelevant, and he had the best year of any rookie quarterback last year.
Was he Iowa State?
Yeah, Iowa State. Yeah. I liked him as a prospect. I said on a podcast, I can pull the clip and send it to you. I said it with my buddy Chase Beebe in 2020, his junior year, which is a COVID year, and I said, I think he'll have like a Case Keenum like career where he'll have opportunities to start, or Nick Foles. That's the other one I compared him to, is I think he could be like that career backup or fringe starting quarterback, and he could end up being even better than that.
Yeah, it was a really neat story. I know a lot of people were really rooting for him. How long is he out now?
If he's having Tommy John, I imagine he's going to miss this year. Yeah.
I can't remember with Tommy John how long. Yeah, that recovery.
It's typically like a year.
Back stronger after Tommy John. Like, it's not, like if you have other injuries, some of them could be you come back, but you're not going to quite be. You can from Tommy John, right? Yeah,
guys throw harder after they have Tommy John. That's what Orestes Destrade said that on last week's show. He's like, do you remember Orestes when he played? He was on the Marlins. He was on Baseball Tonight. Yeah. So he was on our show last week. He's like, yeah, guys throw harder after they have Tommy John.
Huh.
Bryce Harper, by the way, just got back from Tommy John.
Means, Jack.
That's child abuse. That's like
Bryce Harper.
That's like another. Oh no, I'll talk about Harper in a second. But that's like that the Rookie of the Year, that movie.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that was a cute movie. That was fun.
It was a good
Yeah.
one. Yeah, and
Yep.
a couple other good baseball movies that are like a little underrated, not really ones you think of right away. 42 is a great
Oh yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
Like
Oh
that
yeah.
might be that has an argument to be the best. Like I think that's
Yeah.
that good.
Yep.
My favorite from my childhood was The Rookie with Dennis Quaid. I love that
Yep.
movie.
Yep.
And then another one that's
There was a
underrated.
lot of good baseball movies. So many.
The other one that's underrated is Sugar. I don't know if you ever saw Sugar.
They haven't seen that one.
It's about the
Uh-uh.
players that come from the Dominican Republic and try to. It's a fictional story, but it's based off of like that kind of. They stay with a
Right.
host family. What's that life like for them when they get signed for like a sack of potatoes and they're just trying to come to America and create a better life for themselves? And that's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll have to check that out. Honestly, hadn't even heard of it before. Probably have. I just don't remember. But
It's good. It's really good. Yeah. So Bryce Harper had Tommy John surgery right after Thanksgiving, and he just returned to the Phillies lineup 2 weeks ago, which is like
okay.
record time. Now, granted, he's not a pitcher, so he's
Huh.
going to be playing first base and DHing for a while. He's not really going to be throwing, but it reminds me a little bit of when Albert Pujols had that shoulder injury and he couldn't
Hmm.
throw, and he was playing third
Hmm.
base and outfield, and La Russa put him at first base because he's like, we can't lose that bat from our lineup.
Yeah. Yeah. I loved Albert Pujols. I do.
That's
I love Albert
another
Pujols.
great
He's
one.
awesome. Yeah.
Another great
Great
one.
guy. In Kansas City, you hear everybody's a big Albert Pujols fan.
Oh,
So
great. That's
yeah.
awesome.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
I figure you're going to have to run here. So is there anything else for us today, Danny?
Um. No, but I think I need to come on occasionally because I'm gonna have to give you. I just have to give you youth baseball updates and story things that go on. Don't catch Danny on a bad day. Bite
Oh,
your head off.
I agree with you. We forgot to touch on, though, Kansas just landed a big-time transfer.
Hunter Dickinson. Woohoo! Just give us the national champion right now. Natty champs. Woohoo! It's gonna happen. Got that big 7 foot. I think he's 7'1", maybe 7'1". Maybe he's just 7 foot, but
He's
yeah,
a 7-footer. I know that.
yeah, it's a big boy. Yep. Now we'll have a lot. We'll have a lot of others. I don't like the transfer portal though. I really don't. I don't think it's good for college sports.
Do you think it's
I
going
don't
to
know how
get
you feel about
better?
that, but
Do you think it's
huh?
going to get better because we're in this weird spot where we gave all these kids an extra year of eligibility
Yeah.
which I think was a good thing to do because of COVID. Unfortunately, the senior class from the year before that didn't get to end their careers properly.
Right.
But we're going to have this time period for probably a couple more years where we have way more bodies and athletes in the sport than there are roster spots.
Yeah.
So that's a big reason why we have so much transferring. I'm just wondering if that's going to get better 3 years
Right.
from now. What do you think?
Yeah. I don't know. I would think so. I sure as heck hope so. I just don't like it. I just don't like after the end of the year, all of a sudden, oh, well, so-and-so is transfer entering the portal, and so-and-so, and so-and-so. And now my cousin's daughter, I call her my niece, we're all very, very close. Her name's Mia Barnett. She runs track for UCLA. She was at Virginia. And after her first year, she entered it so she could go to UCLA because her dad had a stroke and she's from California, wanted to go back home, wanted to be around, wanted him to be able to watch her run. So, I mean, there are some things that are positive about it and good for the kids. So I certainly understand that, but it's just hard as a fan base to see that happen, not developing teams and people just being able to go, willy-nilly here or there. And it's just a little frustrating as a fan, but I think I think it will. I'd say in about 3 years. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm glad that we have a looser transfer rules because I mean, I transferred schools after my sophomore year. So just think about if I got to Valparaiso University, I transferred in, and it's like, hey, guess what? You can't do radio or newspaper for a whole year. You have to sit out
Yeah,
because you transferred.
right.
Like that would stink. So I'm glad that, and I had to transfer because I had a better situation. It just kind of was the right move for me personally. Now,
Well,
the thing, yes.
no. Say I probably would feel differently about this once my kids are in college if they are playing collegiate
Mhm.
sports. But you might have a different take on it too, because if you get caught in the wrong system and you just know
Yeah.
you better somewhere else. But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, no, I agree with that too, because you want what's best for your kids. I think
Hmm.
the biggest problem, and maybe over time, kids are going to learn something from this and families are going to learn from this. I went
Hmm.
to Valparaiso University, schools in the Missouri Valley Conference, and it's not just a Valpo thing, and Missouri Valley is pretty high in terms of conferences. Like, that's maybe a top 10 conference
Huh?
for basketball. But then you
Yep.
go kind of even lower down on that. And the thing that I've noticed is like so many kids that are college athletes, student athletes, they have an uncle or a family member that's like, my kid can move up and play at Illinois from
Hmm.
Valpo or Loyola or whatever. And there's like this idea, it's not even a thing that I think is big with the actual kids. It's like the parents and the family members who think that, okay, my kid's going to go to Valpo, or they're going to go to Drake or Toledo or whatever it is,
Uh,
and they're going to establish themselves, and then they're going to go up and play at Iowa, or they're going to play at DePaul, or they're going to, and it's like they can do that, but we're seeing so many kids that are transferring and then not playing at those schools. They have an
right.
opportunity to be, a key star or a first or second or third option on a team that's in a smaller conference versus going to a bigger school where they're a bench player, they're a role player. And if
Hmm.
you want your kid to play professionally, because that's the end goal, if you're pressuring your kid or your nephew or whomever it is, your grandson, to switch schools, it's because you think they're going to play professionally and this is the
Hmm.
process. Oh, they're going to go to this school. It doesn't work that way. You're better off letting your kid play at a school where he's going to get the ball in his hands and he's going to get a chance
Yeah.
to make a name for himself.
Yeah. And there's a lot of kids who come from a smaller school and have been greatly had great success in professional sports. Look at Steph Curry.
Yep.
You know, so wherever you're going to go to play, Davidson, he played a lot. It's great. Um, it would have been interesting if the transfer portal was around when Steph Curry was playing. If he would have,
Yeah.
after a year at Davidson, what would have happened? A
Well,
year or
I
two.
mean, so that's what I think will be interesting is if we're 10 years from now, are people going to learn the lessons of like, you
Yeah.
know what? I shouldn't be pressuring my kid to transfer schools. Because I've seen it, and like, these kids don't all, maybe some of them want to leave, but a lot of them, their families they're in their ear, oh, I think you could go start at whatever school this is. So
Yeah.
that's the thing that we're noticing. But by the way, I want to give a shout out real quick. Ben Cricky, great friend of mine, played at Valpo for 4 years. His head coach was let go. He did not want and shortly after, I don't want to put words in Ben's mouth, but shortly after our head coach got let go, Ben announced he was transferring. I know he loved Valpo. I think he saw a good opportunity for himself, and now he's going to go play at Iowa for his 5th year. And he was someone that I saw Kansas fans wanted Kansas to pick up. He's not a 7-footer. I think he's 6'9" or 6'10", but he's a great scorer and he's a center. So
Well,
very
he's
excited for him.
he's still going to be a Hawk. He's going to be a Hawkeye. So,
We're
and
not
we're
Hawks at
about
Valpo.
divided between Iowa and Kansas. My
Oh,
house.
sorry, what was that?
Although my husband went to Iowa, and so
Oh,
yeah, we're a house divided. However, I think I'm winning that battle. I think Stone and Bo are more Jayhawk fans than they are. Well, little Stone and our neighbor kids, who like I said, I'm on car loop duty this week, are getting ready to come out. So it'll get rowdy here in a second.
all right.
But okay, so listen, I know you have lots of superstars that you like to bring on your show, and I'm just Danni from the block, right? Danni from the so but hey, I love getting to come on and chat. So next time you want to have me on, Jack, I'm sure I'll have another fun little league story. Just call me Rocky. So,
I'm certain we'll be hearing from you soon, Danni. Thank you so much for
yes.
coming on. Talk again soon.
Yes, God bless. Talk to you later, Jack.
All right. That concludes our episode today with Danni Boatwright. Thank you all for joining us. It was great to have her back on the show. I know that she wanted to talk some sports the last time she was on. Unfortunately, her busy schedule did not allow for us to go deeper into sports. So today we talked some sports. It was really fun because it was just a free-flowing conversation. We didn't really have any bullet points of topics. We just kind of wanted to chat and see where we went with it, with some general ideas of what we want to talk about. So that was a lot of fun, and we'll be back again soon. So next week, we're going to do something with the PGA Championship. Contributor to the show, a longtime friend of the podcast, Garrett Powell from The Bachelorette. He finished 5th on Hannah Brown's season. He will be back on this show for the first time in over a year. We're going to talk some golf. So how about that? We're going to talk some golf. As I mentioned, for you Survivor fans, Brooke Struck Stevens from Danni's season, Survivor Guatemala. We're going to have her on later this month, potentially next week. We'll see. Maybe it's 2 weeks. But that'll be coming up. And then we're going to have some other baseball episodes coming out soon. So make sure you're out on the lookout for that. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, hit subscribe and also turn on that bell so you get notifications whenever I have new content out there. Most of the people who listen and watch are not subscribed, but if you're able to subscribe and turn on those notifications, that would be a huge help to me. Allow me to keep chugging along here with the Jack Vita Show, as I'm in year 6 now of doing the show. It's hard to believe. But yeah, make sure you guys are subscribed. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Subscribe on Spotify. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Jack Vita Show. And until our next episode, I'm Jack Vita, bringing the dancing lobsters.